Welcome to the Connect with Bmc Helix ITSM and Remedy webinar. During today's webinar, you're able to ask questions of our panelists. The Q&A and the webinar recording will be published to our YouTube channel a week from today's date. Today's topic is 21.02 ITSM feature release, and Peter Adams and the product management team will take us through this content. Over to you, Peter.
Thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this 21.02 ITSM feature release webinar. I'm Peter Adams, Director of Product Management, responsible for the ITSM solution and the underlying service management platform. And on behalf of the entire product management team, I'd like to welcome all of you, wherever you are based. I hope you and your families are doing well. And thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join this webinar. Lots of exciting news to share here. Overall, this 21.02 release is certainly one of the more important release cycles. And we have lots of material available and lots of live demos as part of this session. As part of the webinar here today, I want to quickly start with a release overview. But then the majority of time is really spent on describing all the new capabilities of 21.02. And as I stated, we'll have a number of live demos here because we want you to really experience the new capabilities. So that'll take up the majority of time of this webinar. We'll have some reference information towards the end. But one thing that I'd like to encourage you all is to ask questions during the course of the webinar in the Q&A area so that we can answer it while we're presenting here. I'm joined by a number of representatives from the BMC side that can answer your questions. The 21.02 release, as I stated, is a very important release looking back over the past years, certainly one that is more significant than some of the previous ones that were more incremental. And it's an important stepping stone towards helping customers transition to a more modern service management approach that we call AI service management. Again, our goal here as an organization is to deliver products that help organizations move from the more traditional ITSM approach that tends to be more manual, more rigid in terms of processes, more linear thinking, towards highly automated, highly intelligent, and also collaborative practices. Now, AI technology enables that, and that plays a more and more important role here. But when we use the term AI service management, it is really meant to reflect the entire transition towards a more modern set of practices. And for many organizations, that transition cannot be done from one day to another for the entire organization. So it's certainly important that with our solutions, we continue, of course, to support the more traditional ITSM practices. But then, at the same time, organizations can try out newer practices for specific teams, can see what the benefits are and then gradually transition over. So it's really important that with our suite of solutions, we can support both the traditional as well as the newer practices, right? And you can see this slide almost as an agenda slide for the session today here. There's lots of exciting news to share about our underlying platform, the workflow engine for automation and innovation, as we stated here. Significant release for the platform here, as you'll see. Then we'll talk about our continued investment in AI service management with some exciting new capabilities around ticket clustering. We'll talk about user experience, where we continue to progress in our strategy to deliver a more flexible, tailorable user experience. And then we'll talk about some new capabilities in support of our goal to enable DevOps and Agile Success, specifically in large organization where service management really is an important contributing factor here. So again, this is kind of the high-level overview of the release. One quick note before we go into details here. is about the rollout timeline of this release. Because there are some significant new innovations coming, we decided not to release this 21.02 version immediately to everybody, but have a phased rollout where we initially work with some early adopter customers, collect some more experiences with all the new capabilities, the new designs, before we'll make this available to all customers, which is expected in the June timeframe. Specifically for those customers who are on premises with our software, it'll take a little while before you have full access to the release. But again, this is mostly done to be able to collect experiences from these early adopter customers and then share it later on so that all customers have a great experience with this release cycle. But again, overall, the 21.02 release cycle has always been planned as a SaaS and on-premise release. It's just a decision that we are phasing the rollout in certain ways, starting first with SaaS, but eventually getting to all customers. Now, we don't focus that much on this topic here. For those of you who are interested to understand more, I highly recommend that you look at the recording of the 21.02 pre-release briefing webinar, where we specifically touched on this topic in a bit more detail, also on some other topics. Again, not the focus for this webinar here, but I wanted to mention that to set expectations. Now, let's start out with these four areas of enhancements, the meat of the presentation here. And the first topic is around the platform. As I stated, certainly a more significant release for the platform, as we have made one significant change in this area, and that we have converged what traditionally has been two somewhat separate platform, AR System and Innovation Studio, into a single innovation suite or converged innovation suite platform, which allows us now to run all of our service management solutions, whether it's ITSM, business workflows, digital workplace, your custom apps, partner apps, all on a single instance of the underlying platform. Now, you can imagine that simplifies deployment quite a bit, but there's a number of other benefits that come with it. Number one, it's the same deployment model across our own SaaS deployments. You can use this deployment model in private cloud, public cloud, on premises, it also allows us to now offer certain capabilities that have traditionally only been available in SaaS as an on-premise offering. For example, the underlying innovation suite capabilities or business workflows as one of the solutions. So again, significant change in that we merged the AR System and Innovation Studio capabilities together. And for those of you who have access to the underlying platform, for example, as part of your ITSM solution, you will now have additional capabilities available to you, because all these Innovation Studio capabilities are now available to you as platform users. Now, again, that delivers on the one hand new capabilities like this visual process editor and engine that allows you to define processes visually. That is a new capabilities, but also it gives access to this complete new way of building custom applications that had been established as part of Innovation Studio, right? So again, both building new custom apps is made a lot easier, but then also extending the ITSM solution with some of the capabilities that Innovation Studio traditionally had. And these visually defined processes can be triggered from ITSM workflow, so that you can combine them with the ITSM applications. Also, given that all of these applications now run on the Converged platform, it's much easier to access objects from one side or the other, right? So when you're in an ITSM solution and you want to interact with the business workflow solution, it is super easy to do that because all objects are basically running on the same platform, and the same is true for the underlying foundation data. We are now, running all the solutions on top of joint foundation data that is available to all the different applications and really considered being part of the underlying platform now. Now, with that said, let's have a look at some of this in a live demo. And for that, I'd like to welcome Robert Curley here, who's part of the product management team. And he'll walk you through some of these enhancements that are done as part of the platform. So, Robert, take it away.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Robert, and today I'll be showing you new capability as of this release that can be used by Remedy and ITSM customers both in our SaaS offering and on-prem. What's really exciting and new is that we've merged Remedy and Innovation Suite into a single environment. In other words, Developer Studio and Innovation Studio built apps are now interoperable with each other out of the box. This means that you can do cool things like use apps built in a codeless way in Innovation Studio to extend Remedy apps, including ITSM. I'm going to show you an example of that today. In this scenario, I'm going to take a common use case of sending notifications to users in a group and show how you can use Process in Innovation Studio to send SMS text notifications to all the users in an on-call group using an integration with Twilio. On the top here, I'm going to use some functionality that Remedy users are familiar with, which is when a new incident is created, use the assignment engine and assignment rules to assign that incident to an on-call group when the severity is high or to an individual agent when the severity is low. I'm going to leverage this upper rule that when a new incident is assigned to an on-call group, I'm going to use a filter to fire a process built in Innovation Studio that will then use another process to send notifications to each user in the group. And that notification will include a link to the PWA page in order for the first person in the group to pick it up, respond to it, assign the incident to themselves, and then once that assignment happens, then another filter will be used to fire another process that will then send a notification to each of the agents in the group, letting them know that the assignment was created. All right, let's go take a look at how this works. First, you'll see that we have these two filters. One is this HPD help desk filter on creation of an incident, when the incident is submitted here, then and the assignment group is on call, then we're going to call this process. Here's the ID of the process and pass in the incident record ID. The second is this on modify, and again, when the group is on call demo and the status is assigned, we'll fire yet another process and pass in the record ID. So those are the filters. Let's see how the processes work. The processes are here in Innovation Studio, and if you're not familiar with Innovation Studio, this is what it looks like when you first sign in. There are a list of all the bundles for both applications and libraries. I have this Robert Test bundle with my processes in them, and I have 4 processes. The 2 are going to be for the new incident, and the other 2 are going to be when the incident is assigned. And this is the process that the filter calls. It receives one input variable, which is the ID of the incident, and the first thing it does is it goes and looks up that incident. And you'll see here that the kind of record that I want this get record element to look up is a help desk, an HPD help desk record. So you'll see that all of the remedy forms in our system are visible here by default. There's no work that needs to be done. They're all visible. And so process and the UI and everything in Innovation Studio can see all the AR system records. So once we get the incident, the next thing we want to do is fetch all the people that are in the group that that incident is assigned to. And those list of people assigned to groups are in a CTM form called Support Group Association, which is essentially an association table. It lists all the users and what groups they're assigned to, and we're going to get record by query, and the query that we're going to use is that the row of the table or form, that person's support group ID must match the output of the previous elements, which is the lookup of the incident. So we want all the users whose support group ID matches the assigned support group ID of the incoming incident. That will result in a list of users, and in the next element, we're going to call the notification process and pass in for every, this is a multi-instance loop, so it'll happen for every output of the previous step, so every user found in the previous step, and pass in the information such as the incident's description, the title, the incident's detailed description, so the summary, the login ID of the user, and the incident number. Those will be used to send the user a notification in the next process. Let's take a look at that. So this is called for every user in the group that's found. And the first step is that we're going to find the person record because we want to get that user's email address and phone number to send them an email and a Twilio text message. So this gateway here has a condition that says make sure the user has an email that was found. If not, end, and then if it is found, then send them an email notification that says a new incident was created and all the information about that incident, including a link to the PWA page in order to respond to it. Then it says check to make sure they've got a phone number, a mobile number. And if they do, then send them a text message by Twilio that essentially says the same thing, that a new incident was created, and here's the link to go and respond to that incident to assign it. And essentially, the other two processes are the same in their behavior, the difference being that the message sent now is not about responding to assign the incident. The message is about that the incident was assigned. So that's really the difference here is now the incident has been assigned to and who it was assigned to as a notification. All right, there's our processes. Let's go take a look at how this works. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create my incident, and I'm going to say that Alan is who's requesting this incident, and the problem is there's a system-wide outage. And I'm going to make it extensive and a critical. And I'll save that, and we'll see the alert pop up here. And there's our two notifications. I have two agents in the group. Next, I'm going to click on this link to open up the incident and assign it to myself. Now I assign the incident to myself pretty quickly, and I save it. And there are the notifications that the incident was assigned. So I've shown both the processes being fired by both on creation and needing to sending it to 2 people in the group, and the first person to respond, which was me, I went and assigned it to myself, and then the second set of notifications went out saying, now it's assigned. I hope you liked it. That's it.
Thank you, Robert. But this platform conversion is not the only exciting topic for this release cycle. The other significant change that we're making is around containerization as a new deployment approach across both SaaS, which we've been doing for years, but as well now starting in 2021 for on-premises deployment. So we'll use a container-based deployment approach for this Converged platform, and of course for all the applications that run on top of it. And the main reason why we are doing this has really shown in our own experience that it allows you to establish modern, highly automated practices around deployment, patching, upgrades, scaling. There's a number of benefits around the container-based deployment approach, and not surprisingly, we see this being adopted in general in many of our enterprise customers to a large degree for other applications, and correspondingly, we think it is now time also to support this for our ITSM solution and the underlying Converged platform. Now, again, in this release webinar, we won't go into all the details around how to do the deployment, what we support in terms of technology stack, and how specifically the upgrade would work, because we certainly will enable customers to take what they've run so far, their applications, their customizations, etc., and bring this into the new container world. So all of that will be possible, but we won't touch on this here in the webinar because it's really a bigger topic and requires focus on its own. I do want to call out here that we have done this pre-release webinar where we shared some of this information in more detail. So I'll encourage you to look at this webinar. There's also references in there for question and answers that came up during the webinar itself, as well as a general FAQ document. So this information, there is already lots of information available about this new approach, and BMC plans to share more details over time as we get closer to this full rollout period, right? But again, certainly a significant enhancements over the traditional way to deploy our software, and we're very excited to make this more modern approach available to our customer base. But again, convergence and containerizations may be the biggest changes, but they're certainly not the only ones that are important here from a platform perspective. Let me share a couple of additional exciting new enhancement capabilities. One is a new module that is called Bmc Helix Portal, which is really, on the one hand, a launch point into different solutions from the service and operations management space, but also provides access to common administration functions that are common again across operations and service management solution capabilities, including certain user management capabilities that are of course then synced and with the ITSM solution. So that's an exciting new module that will be available to all customers as part of the underlying platform. We continue to build out capabilities in the single sign-on area, and I particularly wanted to focus here on the first bullets here, where we have enhanced our local user management capabilities with the option to provide or to define account lockout policies, have a certain password criteria that you can configure or trigger a password reset on login. But again, a number of enhancements. By the way, all of this is, of course, as usually described as well in the product documentation. So all the doc spaces, including, for example, for a single sign-on, have an overview of all the enhancements and the description of these new capabilities in more detail. But let me move on. We do also enhance our smart reporting capabilities. On the one hand, moving towards the latest patch release level of the underlying platform. Smart reporting overall now supports the Converged platform. We had to make some changes to make sure it works with the Converged platform. But then we also have introduced a new super user role that provides visibility across all the content. This was one of the top enhancements ideas that was brought up in the BMC community. And in all releases, we for sure look at the enhancement ideas and try to address at least the most important ones. We do not always have bandwidth to do everything, but certainly always try to make progress. And this was one of the areas where we could take on community idea and implement it, right? But in the reporting and analytics area, there is an exciting new capability that I want to talk about, and that's called Bmc Helix Dashboard. Now, some of you who have been following our service and operations management capabilities and our portfolio activity here may remember that we have actually released a first version of this Bmc Helix Dashboard in the 2008 release cycle, though at that time it was only available for our operations management solution. Now we've enhanced the capabilities so they can pull out data from the Converged platform, which means you have access to data from all the applications and run on top of it, whether it's ITSM with incident, problem, change information, etc., whether it's business workflow and the case information, whether it's chatbot, your custom apps, data from all of these modules can be pulled out of the solution and then can be presented in a modern dashboard, which from a technology perspective is based on Grafana, some dashboarding technology that's extremely widely adopted and almost an industry standard for many operations dashboards type of activity. So again, in this release cycle, we're expanding the data sources for this Bmc Helix dashboard towards the service management area. And now that enables you to create dashboards that span operations and service management products all on a single screen, right? And in order to see, the great new capabilities that this provides, I want to ask Rahul Vedak, one of our product managers in the team, to demonstrate these new capabilities. Rahul, take it away.
Thanks, Peter. And I'll be happy to take all of you through our latest Bmc Helix dashboards today. So Helix Dashboards is available from Helix Portal. So I'm going to launch it from Helix Portal, and you'll see that in the new tab here. What you see currently is homepage for Bmc Helix Dashboard, and it's all configurable. So on the top, you can make out those links for documentation, communities, and then what you have is those videos available for you to learn about the product. And then this is the place where you'll see the list of dashboard, but this will show you a short list where you are going to look at the star dashboards or some of the dashboard that you recently visited. For the bigger list of dashboard, those are available to you. You can go to this dashboard menu, and then you have this manage options to look at those dashboard. Let me go back to homepage. This entire homepage is configurable. So if once you are learned about the product, you can actually change this video links to add a specific dashboard that you want to see right after you log in, or any other details that you want to see on this page, right? I can go ahead and open this dashboard, insert dashboard, and I'll do a quick walkthrough of how a dashboard is organized. So this is this sample dashboard for Instant that you get out of the box. What you see, the multiple boxes are called panels, which are like, you can count there are 6 panels on the top and then, 4 different other panels here. I can actually look at each of the panel in a bigger canvas. So when I go for this view menu, I can see the same chart available on a bigger canvas. This particular chart, I have, few things like, I can just select one particular metric to look at, and it will just, focus on that metric, right? Let me go back. There are a few other options also available. For example, the edit is what many of you would focus on. So if I edit this panel, essentially it has 3 elements. So you have the chart or the visualization here, the corresponding query or the query builder available below, and then for each of the chart type you have some of the settings available here, right? So for example, this chart is of graph type, and for that chart I have a lot of configurations available here, right? So whether I want to look at the lines, how big the line width should be, etc., right? So I can change all of those values from for chart type. Let me again go back here. Another option is share. So for this panel, I have option to share this panel with other users. So I can do that from here, or I could also take a snapshot of this particular chart at this moment so that I have this information available as what the metrics look like at this moment if I have to refer those in the future. There is embedding capability, so I can also put this panel into another UI. Or the most important one, or most widely that many of you would use is the PDF thing, right? So if I want to take a snapshot of that panel, and if I just want to save a copy of that in a PDF file, I can very well do that. And you can see this chart and all the corresponding filter conditions with BMC branding available here. This capability of sharing is also available at the dashboard level. So pretty much the similar options here. You have the link, snapshot, ability to export the definition of this in a JSON file, and then a download option. Here the download option will take the entire dashboard in a PDF format. So you'll see that this is now available for all the panels on the page. At the dashboard level, you have few other options. So as you can see here, there are few filter conditions we have added. So we have filter condition for company, assign group priority. These are all configurable at the dashboard level. Another, the most widely used filter condition is the duration of the data that is being shown here. So I have a lot of those time ranges available default here, as you can see. Or I could just write something on my own here, like 12 day, and apply this time range. So immediately the data will get reflected, and you can see the query is running in the behind. I can also define how frequently this dashboard should refresh the data. So if you're running this in knock, etc., you could say that run this dashboard for every few minutes, or by default we are going to keep it off so that only when you load this dashboard, that's when you'll get the latest data for this dashboard. So we looked at what a sample out of the box instant dashboard looks like, but very likely you will also have will look at some of the capabilities of building your own dashboard, taking this as a starting point. So the way I can go ahead is I can say that go to the dashboard setting. By the way, these are different dashboard settings, so I can define the dashboard name, etc., how frequently the refresh should happen, etc., and then the variables, right? So the variables in this case, I talked about those company assigned group priority are my variables in the filter condition which I pass to different panels there. I can just go ahead and save this dashboard as a copy, and that's my starting point. So the copy is created, and I can start editing that copy. The other way to create a dashboard is I can take a JSON of this. This is going to be particularly useful when I have to take a dashboard definition from dev to QA to prod. I could just save the JSON, and I can create a dashboard and use the import option to upload that JSON. Or I could just start with a completely new fresh canvas here, and I say that start creating this dashboard, and the first step is add a panel. So I'm in process of building this particular panel, and Here, I'm going to select in the data source list Bmc Helix. And because I'm focused on ITSM data, I'm going to select the service management plugin. So this is the plugin that BMC has added, which can fetch data from Remedy or the Converged server. Once I select service management plugin, I'm going to use the form-based approach here, and I'll talk about the SQL-based approach later. But let me start with the form name here. So I'm going to use help desk form here. And for this help desk form, I'll select a couple of fields to begin with. So I'll use entry ID. Let me add a couple of fields here. I will add priority. I'll go ahead and add assign group. And then I'll add the last one here, company. And let me change this to table view. And as you can see, the moment I added those different columns, I already start seeing some data, right? So let me quickly change this. Okay, so you can see the data already getting populated here. And then I can, of course, add some of the where clause here. So I can say that hey, where clause here is show me data for priority equal to critical. Okay, now you can see there is data already available here for many of those incidents here. The next step for me is to go ahead and add visualization. So here I'm going to use a table. Let me use BMC develop cross tab table here. And once I select this table, I can go ahead and select what kind of data I want to look at. So I'm going to see count of incidents here, and then on my add my columns as assigned group, and let me add my status as row. And you can see that there's already data getting populated in this table. So that's how easy it is to create this panels or the panels or dashboard here, right? So I can just go ahead and save it, and I can build another plugins. Okay, so this panel is now saved as part of this dashboard. I did refer that there is another way to write queries, and that option is here. So I can actually write the query in a SQL fashion. So what I'll do is, and you can see that the corresponding SQL is created. This could be very well way for me to go ahead and write a SQL directly in this SQL editor. The only thing to keep in mind is this SQL this uses ARJDBC syntax. So that's the other way to write your query here. We looked at out of the box insert sample dashboard. Let me show you the other ones that we have added in this release. So we have a dashboard for chatbot we have added. And also when new release of business workflow will be out, that will also include another dashboard for business workflow as well. And if you're a Helix customer for other BMC solutions like Helix Monitor, there are content available for different Helix Monitor or other Helix solution in same Helix dashboard as well. Another advantage of using Helix Dashboard or underpin Grafana open source technologies, Grafana offers multiple data sources that customers can connect to. And that allows you to get data from these different sources into Helix Dashboard, and you can actually analyze data coming from these sources along with your ITSM or other service management metrics. And Peter, before I give you control back, one of the great advantage of using dashboard and transitioning from current smart reporting is what some of the queries that you have added as part of smart reporting. Those queries can be used as is in Helix dashboard because the underlying technology for getting the data continues to be same, which is ARJDBC. So that will enable quick transition to Helix Dashboard for our customers. With that, control is back to you, Peter. Thank you.
Thank you, Rahul. So in summary, as you can see, 21.02 certainly a significant release from a platform perspective with our new dashboarding capabilities, but again, also with the convergence and containerization. Lots of exciting news around the platform, and really shows that BMC continues to invest in the platform and provide leading new capabilities to US customers. Now let's move on to the second topic, and that's around user experience. Now in this area, we had shared before our strategy that we are moving our modern, highly efficient user experience for ITSM that we rolled out with Smart IT, that we're transitioning this over towards progressive web app as technology. Again, mainly with two goals in mind here. Number one is to provide a much better flexibility around tailoring and extending the solution, almost to the degree that of flexibility that you had with the mid-tier, including, by the way, any custom apps or capabilities that you may have developed. But then secondly, also to make it easier to deploy the solution and use it on mobile devices, in that you wouldn't have to worry about deploying native apps anymore, how to brand, how to customize them, how to handle security wrappers. All of these topics are no longer relevant because we're using one PWA code line and UI that is designed to be responsive, so works on all form factors, not just a standard desktop browser approach. So in this 21.02 release, we have made progress around the transition to this progressive web app strategy, in that we are introducing a number of new screens that are built on this new progressive web app technology, and that is specifically a problem investigation, on error, task, asset, people, and broadcast. Those are the new screens here. Again, with the same great user experience that you know from a Smart IT perspective, but then providing the additional flexibility that hasn't been supported so far. Again, all these are designed as responsive screens, although as of today, you'd still have to use the mobile apps, so to speak, because we haven't completed the transition fully. And the full use on mobile devices will only be possible once we completed the transition. And then as we are redesigning the screens, we look, of course, to align this with the general Bmc UX standard. And then, while we're in this transition phase, we also give customers the option to opt into the new approach or continue to use the legacy Smart IT approach, right? And then, as we've done in 2008 as well, as we are transitioning these screens over, we always look at opportunities to refine and enhance the solution capabilities, specifically if it's possible without a major investment. On the one hand, we want to go through this transition as quickly as possible, but again, if there are opportunities to enhance the solution, we of course will look at it. And as you'll see in a minute here, we have been able to implement a number of enhancements as part of our asset management capabilities, whether it's better support of contract information, whether it's introducing a new Explorer view, or providing capabilities to show all the different class attributes of the different asset type classes. So with that, again, time for a live demo here. So let me hand it over to John Stevens Hall, our expert on the ITSM user experience side, and he'll walk you through some of these enhancements that I just mentioned here. So John, take it away.
Thank you, Peter. ITSM 21.02 adds a number of additional progressive web app screens over and above what we had already done in 20.08. So if you recall previously, we'd done incident and work orders, converting them to the new format which enables full customizability in Dev Studio and a future of much easier mobile deployment. So in this release, we've updated this with problems, known errors, tasks, broadcasts, and assets, plus the people profile. And we're going to look at some of those highlights right now. Let's start then by opening up the ticket console and having a look for some problem investigation records. So I'm going to click to open this, and this will now open up into the new progressive web application view for problems. As you may recall from the new record forms in 20.08, the overall layout looks pretty similar. There's a few key differences. When we reassign, for example, we do this straight from the field now by putting the form into this edit mode, and that's pretty simple search for a new assignee. We'll also take a look at the related items tabs down at the bottom here. Again, as with 20.08, these are now in table views rather than the kind of the UX cards of the previous Smart IT interface, and that actually gives us some nice benefits. I mean, firstly, this table is fully customizable as an AR system table. It also means we can easily sort just by clicking on the top of the column. One of the additional form types that's converted in this release is tasks. So let's actually take a look at creating a new task record and associating it with this problem record. So again, here we go. This is the new Create Task view. This is again a customizable progressive web app view, but once again it looks pretty similar to the original Smart IT forms of previous versions. So I can quickly fill in some task details. Let's do a search for a team to assign this to, and I can see the users there. So these fields, they are actually type ahead fields, but by setting the type ahead number to 0, we can make them act as pop-up menus. I mentioned that the people form is one of the ones that's also been changed, so I can let's take a look at Susan's profile here. And once again, you see a very similar pattern. We have a pretty similar looking form to the previous Smart IT version. The child records in these related tabs are all presented in tables. And another thing that's converted to table, once again as with the 20.08 release forms that have converted, is this update feed. So by making an update in entry here, we just see that presented in a subtly different way. Okay, back on the problem record here, I'm going to take a look at knowledge. So I've come to the resources tab. Once again, it's presented slightly differently. It's another table, and but again, I can do a search in the usual way, and as with previous Smart IT versions, linking that knowledge article is very easy. It's just done with a single click on that icon. Just for the record, knowledge articles themselves are not yet converted to progressive web app. That's not happening in this version. Okay, one of the most interesting forms for us to convert was the asset form. You may be familiar with mid-tier having a single mid-tier form for each asset class, and that's pretty unwieldy, very flexible, but it means there's a lot of asset forms in the system. Smart IT simplified that considerably, and so to implement asset in PWA, we kind of had to provide the best of both. So this is the view of a business service, and if I move into edit mode, you'll see that we've created an asset edit form with a number of different sections. So pretty much in line with the structure I think you're fairly familiar with in previous interfaces. So I can easily go and work and edit on those different sections. However, as we know, the asset forms are underpinned by Atrium Cmdb, and we have a number of different classes, and they have a number of different attributes. So while we have common attributes like supplier, as I've just changed, and I'll just quickly save this. Notice, by the way, it goes through the reconciliation process, and it highlights that. So I'm just going to refresh that to make sure it's refreshed from Sandbox. And there we go, the supplier is updated. But it's important to understand what's going on with other asset classes. So a good example of an asset class where we expose more fields very specific to the class is computer system. And so when I open up the computer system form, you'll see there's a section there with those dedicated attributes. Putting this in edit mode, it sort of shows how this works. And what we in fact have here is an inline frame. So that frame is actually a separate child form with the specific attributes for the computer system class, and we can create those forms and populate them with fields from any asset class. So out of the box, there's just a handful of them with additional fields, and that's in parallel with Smart IT. But if you need to add additional custom attributes from a specific class, you can do that by populating one of those frames in Dev Studio. Okay, down here on the tabs at the bottom, we can of course relate additional items. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and relate a new asset, or rather relate an existing asset to this asset. And once again, we can do this from this search dialog. So I'm going to select the computer system record here that I found, highlight that, choose my relationship type, and denote that this is going to be a child of the current asset. And saving that again creates the relationship. Because we've got sandbox mode on here, we get that note to say this is going to be propagated through the sandbox. And I'm going to reload that asset and just make sure that now we see that number of related assets move from 3 to 4. But one change here that might well be of interest is that we've integrated this now with the CI Explorer view from the Atrium Cmdb. Now, a bit of background here. When we first built Smart IT, Atrium did not have its new interface, and the only Explorer view was the one based in the old mid-tiers. So we originally built a dedicated Explorer for Smart IT, but it's nowhere near as richly functional as the Atrium one. And what this gives us now is, I think, best of both. You now have, it's pretty easy to explore in a fairly simple way. You can view the attributes and things from the Atrium perspective, but also this means we can tie in other actions related to CMDB tools. So now we get access to a lot more power from that Explorer view. Okay, let's look at some of the other forms. I'm going to go back to that problem record, and I'm going to create a known error directly from the problem. So I do that as usual from the Related Items tab, and I can do if you see there's a number of instances already related to it and an existing known error, but let's create another one. And again, so the known error form is transformed in the same way. This is the create mode, and just as with the previous versions, I can now come in and directly create a known error related to this problem. So let's quickly add a bit of workaround information, and I will save that. Yep, we get this nice reminder, of course, that I need to add a target date. This date widget has the option to edit by entering values directly. There's also this sort of useful little selector that enables you to select the hours and minutes and seconds of the day. So I'm going to save that, and that's now created my known error record. So as a quick summary before I hand back to Peter, what you've seen here from the 21.02 release is a number of additional record types now converted to progressive web app technology, thus enabling them to be customized in Dev Studio. So you've seen problem, known error, we looked at task, we looked at the people profile, we looked at assets. The one that we didn't demo but it's also covered in this release is the creation of broadcasts. So just to summarize, we are well on the way to finalizing the PWA transformation of Smart IT, and this release is a really big step forward. With that, I'll hand you back to Peter for the rest of this session. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. And super exciting to see these new capabilities here on the ITSM UI side. Stated, we're working with high speed to complete these transition towards a completely PWA built UI, which again will open up another set of new capabilities specifically around mobile use. But one additional point that I wanted to make here around the progressive web application strategy is that, again, for the first time, it allows you to build a smart IT-like UX also for your custom applications, because the PWA layer is part of the underlying Converged platform. It does work for your custom AR system applications, and you can build similarly modern flow layout based UIs with the corresponding modern visual rendering, with the responsiveness, with these modern concepts like these slide out panels. You can build all of that using the exact same approach, and again apply it whether it is any custom extension, a completely independent custom app, or even areas which we haven't covered yet with our smart IT functionality. You could build your own screens for that as well if there's an area that you need to urgently cover. So again, that's clearly a big focus for us, the transition towards this progressive web UI. But of course, in every release, we're also looking at additional functional capabilities that we're adding. And right now, a lot of focus is on our live chat component, as it draws a lot of interest from our customer base. Many customers are rolling out a combined chatbot and live chat capability set in order to support their customers. And as part of this 21.02 release cycle, we're introducing a number of new capabilities. For example, within our new supervisor monitoring dashboard that we had introduced in a previous release cycle, we're adding new actions that supervisors can perform, whether it's about assigning a chat to a specific agents, whether it's basically joining a chat for supervising capabilities or monitoring capabilities. All these actions can now be driven from the corresponding supervisor console, and vice versa. The agent can also ask the supervisor for help, and then the supervisor can correspondingly join the session that the agent has with the customer. So that's one area. Again, further building out the new monitoring dashboard that we've introduced. And then secondly, we have further enhanced the quick text capability, in that it's possible now to group these quick texts in specific sections, basically group them so that you can more easily see, which areas these quick texts belong to, so to speak, whether it's part of your initial conversation starter, whether it's part of wrapping up corresponding sessions. Those things can be now grouped, the quick text can be now grouped, and it's easier to correspondingly find specific quick text entries here. But again, that's not the only thing. We made some improvements around branding and around our BCM integration, which is now easier to launch. Those are some of the enhancements that we've done around our live chat capabilities. And then other enhancements in the ITSM area include enhancements on the localization side, where we completed our localization for Russian. This localization had some kind of exceptions and wasn't fully available in SAS, so that is possible now. As well as we're introducing a new localization for Polish for our ITSM UI, and have made updates to some of the dialogues in the MITI UI specifically, in order to better support Chrome 80 plus. You may have seen some of the notes that we have published that Google has made some changes in the Chrome browser in the latest versions, and in order to support that properly, we have made some updates on some of the dialog screens to better support these changes. Now, last topic on the user experience side that I wanted to touch on is around our new Cmdb Ui, which is of course our recommended UI for any kind of Cmdb administration activity. There's a number of enhancements that have gone into this release, mostly again from an administration or operations perspective. For example, you can now view and cancel unresponsive or stuck jobs that are in the reconciliation job queue. You can look at audit history across all the related classes, right? Not just in context of a specific class. and you can define UI preferences for the CMDB Explorer or the CI Explorer, specifically how many CI levels should be displayed here. So a number of enhancements around the new Cmdb Ui that will be helpful in the usage of the corresponding UI. Okay, so let me then move on to the third topic, and that's our enhancements in the AI service management area. Now, as you know, we've invested in this area for quite a while. Initially, the focus, aside from our investment in chatbot and a number of cognitive capabilities in that area, for the core ITSM application, the focus was really on leveraging classification algorithms in order to implement certain automation capabilities, right? Whether it's auto categorization, whether it's automated triaging of inbound emails and responding with meaningful emails, or creating a corresponding incident with the right information, whether it's automated recommendation around root causes for problem records, or risk level for change records, or whether it's enabling you to implement similar capabilities for any custom use cases. That again has been the focus over the past roughly 2 years as we've been building out these capabilities. But starting with the 21.02 release cycle, we're introducing an exciting new capabilities that focus around clustering, NLP and clustering technology, like k-means, in order to understand similarity of tickets. And we are making use of that in two main areas, two use cases in this round. One is around proactive problem management, which is a use case specifically designed for problem managers or problem coordinators. And here we help problem coordinators specifically to understand clusters of recurring incidents in a larger set of typically closed incidents. Let's say you look at a month worth of data or 3 month worth of data. You can analyze them and understand what are the patterns here, which incidents are really the same and thus should be clustered together. And then the counterpart is what we call real-time incident clustering, which does not look at, again, historic tickets, but rather at incoming new tickets to the service desk. And again, trying to understand similarity in what's going on and understanding what kind of situations are forming based on the new incidents that are coming into the service desk. So now, before I start continuing to describe all this on slides, let me switch over to a live demo and show you based on the real software. Okay. Let's start out here in our Smart IT UI. If the new AISM capabilities are enabled, and if the users have the right incident and problem permissions, then they'll see an additional menu item here, workspaces, which they can use to launch into the new proactive problem management and incident correlation capabilities. This has been implemented as a new app built on the Converged innovation suite. And what you see here initially is basically the results of the incident analysis job that was run in support of the proactive problem management capabilities here. And the screen that you see here is the heat map screen, which basically shows each cluster as a rectangle. And the heat map view is very helpful because the size reflects a certain metric, in this case the number of incidents, and the color can display a certain metric as well, or semantic as well, in this case the average priority. So let's hide the legend here a bit. And the heat map view is specifically helpful to understand the relative size of the cluster, so to speak, in terms of, again, in this case, number of incidents, right? it is not the only way to look at the results of the analysis. There's also a list view, which you can use to more, classically sort the clusters by different parameters, whether it's the number of incidents or the total resolution time or the trend or average priority. This is more the standard clustering, and of course you can page to, if there are more than the listed clusters here, you can page to the list here. But let's go back to the heat map view here. Again, that gives you an impression of the results, which incidents have been detected as similar, even if the description, for example, has been entered in free text. You can see here there's different types of description, but the system basically has analyzed them as being similar and put into the same cluster. Now there's additional information available here. You see information about the trends, how these incidents came in, about the categorization, and you can even drill down further into details here. So you can very easily jump from here back into the incident screen in SmartIT to understand more what's going on, right? So let's jump back to the cluster. As you can see here, these are all incidents that have been resolved, because typically you do proactive problem management based on resolved incidents. You want to understand where the organization has spent most time. Now, one particular benefit of this UI is that you can slice and dice the information in different ways. First of all, there are different job definitions that you can run to look at different data sets with different parameters, with different analysis approaches, so to speak. And you can look at information in different way. For example, this job run looks at all incidents, including the ones that are generated from event management solutions, but this one only focuses on the user reported incidents, right? So that's one option. The other option is that the size of the rectangles can be based on different parameters, and that's a very important distinction here. And you cannot only show the cluster and the size of the cluster based on the number of incidents, but also how much time was really spent on managing these incidents. And that's really what's ultimately important for deciding which of these clusters should be further investigated, because problem management is generally a very costly process, and each organization typically only has a few shots per review cycle. Let's say you do this every month. You may be able to pick the 5 most important clusters and investigate them further. So it's extremely important to pick those that are reflecting the biggest amount of work. Now, we know not every organization really tracks the actual effort spent, even though you can do that in ITSM. Doesn't track the actual effort spent per incident, which is used to calculate this one. So we also provided total resolution time here as an approximation for the effort spent. In this case, we're looking just at the time when the incident was registered and when it was resolved, basically the elapsed time. And we are, calculating the resolution time based on that, and then, the total resolution time of this cluster. Again, that's not reflecting the actual effort, but it's a close approximation. And it would address situations where you have lots of incidents in a cluster, but all incidents that are very easy to resolve, right? Those would probably not be reflected in as big a cluster as incidents that takes a lot of time to resolve, right? Now, the other important item is that all these clusters are, or this UI is really looking at actionability. So you can, pick the incidents in the cluster. You can, let's say deselect a few in case they're not really fitting to the cluster, and from here you can create corresponding problem investigation after corresponding review. You can say, yeah, this looks okay, and save. And then you see, these incidents are automatically related to the corresponding new problem investigation that was created from here. Right? So let's jump back to the cluster here. Another item that's interesting is that you can generate or export the information in these screens here as a PDF file, for example. So you can look at both the hotspot view, but also, in a list type view, the information that the screen provides. You can export them and share them even outside of the solution itself. Right? So let's again jump back to the clustering here. Now, again, as I stated, this is all based on an analysis that was run as a job in the background, and this is what you use this managed job for. So each user who has access to this capability can define up to 3 one-time jobs and up to 3 recurrent jobs. And that allows you to really look at data in different ways. For example, you can look at all completed incidents over a certain time period, just at the user reported one. If you want to analyze, incidents for one specific service, this is for one-time analysis job. But again, you can also define your standard job for your standard, let's say, monthly review cycle, right? So you do monthly incident analysis, let's call it that way. You have access to all the fields on an incident record, and you can say, I want to see some additional information here and leverage that as part of the analysis. You can say, okay, I only want to see specifically the resolved and closed incidents. And then you can define the recurrency here, how often this job is meant to run. In this case, let's say monthly on the first day of the month. But also, let's say how far you want to look back here. So every month I want to look exactly 1 month back and do this as part of my my monthly job run here. And let's do this roughly for 1 year here. Now, when you do the analysis, you can decide to just look at all incidents and cluster them based on this machine learning algorithm, looking at, again, different free text fields, for example, that are analyzed, the summary and the description in this case. But the system also allows you to first select grouping criteria. Let's say you want to first group all incidents into specific buckets, each one reflecting one service. And then you can do the machine learning analysis within each bucket. So that makes sure the clusters never go across different services. They would all be done per service, so to speak. Now let's save this. And then you can see now we have a monthly incident analysis job defined. It's enabled. You can pause it, of course, here with this toggle. And basically every month it would look at the resolved incidents of the previous month and provide the corresponding analysis. Now let me quickly touch on the real-time incident correlation. As discussed here, this is the counterpart that only looks at new incoming incidents. And here you don't have to do a job definition because the system basically looks at all the new incidents that are coming into the system and basically tries to cluster these incidents automatically, right? You also have some option here to slice and dice information. For example, you can say, I want to sort these clusters. Each card basically reflects a cluster. You can sort it by priority. You can sort it by the number of incidents. So here you can see when I sort it by number, this one with 24 incident comes high up, even though it's generally a cluster of low incidents in average, at least. And then again, the chart basically, or the dashboard here automatically refreshes. And again, the benefits of this solution is that you can see here in real time incident clusters that reflect an emerging situation. So here, for example, you see that there's a number of incidents being reported around web methods, and you can see that there's something going on here in the environment. And from here, of course, you can drill down into details. And then you can register all these incidents as duplicates of one original incident here. So not only does it make it simpler to analyze the situation, but you're also able to bulk relate incidents as duplicates to an original, which of course takes work out of the system, because then you only need to manage one incident. Okay, so I hope that gave good insight into the new capabilities. Of course, there's lots more detail behind it, but let's jump back to the presentation. As third and final topic in the area of AI service management, I wanted to call out a new capability that is integrated with our incident management solution, and that's the option to look at a probable cause analysis that is provided by our AIOps module. As you can see here on the screenshot, if AIOps is enabled and if service or CI is filled out on a ticket, users will see a corresponding button that says Explore Probable Causes. And what it does here is it basically opens up a new screen that is provided by our AIOps module with additional information about what may have caused a specific issue with a service or a CI. You'll see here on the left side of the screen different suggestions basically of probable causes together with the underlying information what has led to the projection, and each of these probable causes has a certain percentage in terms of likelihood what have caused it. And you can see also that there are options to look at topology information, metrics, etc., all again part of our AIOps solution. So this will help users managing incidents in accelerating the understanding what may have caused an incident, and that of course helps overall with resolution. So accelerated resolution time of incidents is really a key topic here. So those are the three main enhancements we have in this release cycle for AI service management. Again, it shows our investment in AI capabilities to further improve the outcomes, whether it's in the problem management area, in the real-time incident clustering, or whether it's in the probable cause analysis in collaboration with our AIOps module. Now let me touch on the last topic and the enhancements that we've done in support of enabling DevOps and Agile success. This is again a big topic for us, and we've have made investments here over the past years to help companies ensure DevOps success, specifically in large organizations where things around large-scale support or change management under the constraints and goals of DevOps is of course an important topic. So we've done a few changes here in this area. First and foremost, around our solution that handles integrations between ITSM and development systems like Jira or Azure DevOps. This solution has been renamed from Bmc Helix Multi-Cloud Service Management to Bmc Helix Multi-Cloud Broker. As part of this release cycle, like before, it covers a number of use cases, not just integration with development solutions in support of better DevOps, but also integration use cases around ticket brokering, security incident management, ticket consolidation, cloud monitoring, and others. And specifically in the DevOps area, of course, our capabilities are rich here, because that has been really one of the key use cases that customers in our customer base have been interested in. So again, same number of use cases here, same capabilities, but now sold and marketed under the new name Bmc Multi-Cloud Broker. The other change that we're introducing here is that these capabilities are now available also with Bmc Helix iPaaS as underlying integration technology. So it's not just the use cases, including the UI integration capabilities that you see here that enable visibility of third-party record information within the ITSM UI and the corresponding collaboration. But it's the underlying technology that is changing as well here. And specifically here, using now our Bmc Helix iPaaS solution that is powered by Jitterbit technology here, one of the leading iPaaS vendors. So from that perspective, again, similar flow, similar use cases, but now powered by an iPaaS solution that has much wider integration options available, both to business solutions as well as to various IT solutions. And we continue to build out the connectors together with our partner here, the connectors to integrate with more IT solutions so that you have an extremely rich set of capabilities here. Some of the more recent additions here to the list of connectors for Bmc Helix iPaaS are listed on this slide here. A number of Microsoft solutions as endpoint here, but also connectors for IBM QRadar, Splunk, AWS support system, OpsGenie, AppDynamics. You can really see here that we're talking about an open solution where we enable you, our customers, to integrate all kinds of software elements that you may have towards out-of-the-box use cases. On top of the new connectors that we've built for Bmc Helix iPaaS, we also have a number of predefined templates or integration flows that are built and supported now as part of 21.02. You can see the use cases here. Again, this goes beyond just integrations from a DevOps perspective towards many ops integrations and other scenarios here. A rich set of capabilities that span multiple third-party capabilities. Now again, integration between ITSM and the development systems, it's not the only capability that we have here in support of DevOps success here, but we continue to offer and collaborate with partners here around a more advanced change risk prediction capability. This is done in collaboration with our partner Digital.ai, which has advanced capabilities in this area, thus reducing the risk of failed changes and preserving a high speed of change rollout, because you can more intelligently decide which changes can pass through without approval and which have to be looked at. And then another partner solution that I want to call out here to make information work in progress, so to speak, visible in a way that is more aligned with agile thinking, for example, in a Kanban or a Gantt type chart here. Again, leading to easier acceptance with users who are particularly looking for this type of visualization from a DevOps perspective. Okay, so we've reached the end of the webinar here. Let me summarize a few points here. First of all, this page has a number of references. Particularly, I want to point out the recording of the pre-release briefing that has additional information about the rollout timeline and the reason for it, as well as some more information about the containerization approach on premise. As always, all the enhancements about our releases can be found on the Enhancements Doc pages. And I would always start with the one for the ITSM suite, because that has consolidated information for all the solutions. And then specifically for the progressive web UI, I want to call out a great resource, this community page here that has a series of videos around our progressive web UI and how you can use that technology. By the way, on the documentation side, I should call out an enhancement as well, as we've simplified our documentation structure, specifically in the ITSM area. We have, of course, many doc spaces, and we know that sometimes it can be hard to find information. So we've done enhancement here, reducing the total number of topics by about 60%, leading to easier navigation. You don't have to navigate between multiple doc pages as much as you had before here. And then it's also important to call out that we always recommend that you take a look at the troubleshooting guidelines, as this is helpful information, specifically when you roll out a specific release and you run into any issues. This kind of troubleshooting information really allows to help you help yourself, right? Okay, that's it for today. As you can see, lots of great information, lots of great features that have come out with this release. I want to thank you for your interest and sticking with us here for that long. But as you can see, it takes a while to talk about all these great capabilities. And with that, I'd like to hand it back.
Thank you. And now I'll take us through the self-help in Contacting Bmc. The YouTube channel where this webinar will be posted is listed here. It contains past webinars as well as a rich set of how-to videos. The Connect with Bmc Helix ITSM and Remedy webinar schedule is available at this community's link. And the Hot Off the Press newsletter for trending information is available at this community's post. As always, contacting technical support via web, phone, email, and these social channels is available. At this time, that will conclude this webinar. Thank you for attending.